Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katrina and this is I am doing a wrap up of this last week's reading. This should be a short video because I think I finished 3 books. I'm currently reading a bunch of books, but I finished 3 books because I also have been enjoying the movies and series that have been coming out that are spooky and of the season as well. So I binged watched Midnight Mass on Netflix. That was great. It had a lot of Stephen King vibes. Mike Flanagan is becoming an automatic watch movie maker for me. Although I love his TV stuff and I'll watch 5 to 10 hours of his stuff, I still haven't watched his movies and I keep meaning to. And there's this funny meme that I saw on Reductress that said like woman can't find I don't know, it was something like my issue, and I don't know what that is psychologically, where I can sit down and watch 10 hours of a show, but you can't get me to sit down and watch a 2-hour movie half the time. So I watched that, and then I watched You, which that's my show. I love me some Joe Goldberg and his I think they called it out this season that who is he? He's like right out in the open stalking these people, and they kind of put a lampshade on that, what they call putting a lampshade on something, where they kind of make a obvious, tip to the fact that they know people talk about this. So like, yes, Joe, your little hat does not make you invisible. It was so funny. The memes make watching this show even better than. So that's why I have so few books completed. But we finally did finish Tristan Strong, Punches a Hole in the Sky, with the kids. It took us a while to get that done, but we finally did it. Author is Kwame, Mbalia. I'm starting to realize that the M in front of these names I think are silent, because there is a video essayist on here named Khadija Bow, and her name has that MB as well. So I'm assuming that's how you say it. My 8-year-old said that this book got a 5 out of 5. I asked him why. He said it was good, and I was like, what part is good? He goes, the whole thing. So I appreciated the mixture of folklore and from Africa and America, from Black people here who have come up with their own folklore. Some of it that is similar, with the Brer Rabbits and foxes and things like that. But there was John Henry made a show. Hi John. Due to the bone ships and the fetterlings, which is just iron cuffs with the chains, I knew that had to do with slavery, and I just thought that just the boats, the bone ships with the people, you can hear the people, they smelled like, all of that seemed to suggest slavery. And I kept trying to find what the meanings were. So like, there's different lands and they weren't working together to get rid of the big bad, Uncle C and Mafa. And I took that as African Americans and people in the diaspora not working together, or not seeing themselves as a whole, or the fact that, we would be stronger if we were, together. And Uncle C, which was a haint or a ghost that was haunting and started this whole thing, and was when Tristan was angry and he went to his grandmother's bottle tree and he punched a tree that tore a hole in this other world, and then he had to work to repair it, like find all of these different things. And the only critique that I would have is that it was quite a long book, and it may have drugged just a little bit, and it was a little darker than I would have liked for a kid's book. Like, there wasn't enough whimsy, and I don't know if it has to have it, but it's middle grade, and I was reading it to an 8 and 11-year-old, so I wish it was a little bit more whimsy in the magic. There was a lot of magic, but the gods weren't like as juiced up as I would have liked them to be, or it had the sameness of some of the other African American or African middle grade books that I've read. The gods all kind of feel the same. And maybe it's because it's coming from the same pantheon of gods, but I don't know. I wanted a little bit more whimsy, and it's because it's such a thick book, having so many people go missing, having so many difficult times, having so many, I don't know, it was just very, Tristan was very down on himself, and the gods, I don't think there was one god that kind of like welcomed him in and was nice to him and like took him under this, John Henry was, but John Henry was even very stoic. Most everybody else was kind of sarcastic toward him if they paid him any attention, or they were just right out, caustic toward him. I don't know. It was interesting. So I just wish that there was a little bit more of that, but I gave it the 5 out of 5 because my 8-year-old said it, and that's who it matters to. Next book I finished was The Midnight at Bright Ideas Bookstore, and this book, I thought it would be, I don't know. I don't know if the book knew what it was going to be or if I didn't know what it was going to be. It seemed like it was going to be a cozy mystery, but it came off as cozy. It had cozy elements to it, the kind of cozy things that I like. Bookstores, food, group of friends, and people who knew each other. The group of friends is called Book Frogs, and they're just this ragtag group of people that hang out at the book store that don't even buy anything really. They just, every day there's one guy's seat, and he keeps the seat, and I think he was homeless. And so there's people who are just retired, they're really smart retired professors, all the way to the homeless guy. And some people were book frogs as children at this place and have grown up and still come around. That's what they call themselves anyway. So it had that coziness to it. It's a book about books. That's really cozy to me. But it had a really serious mystery, and it had a really serious beginning to that mystery, where a young guy who, it's not even the beginning, because I feel like we get to know this character, but he kills himself, and there's a weird thing in his pocket that sets the mystery on, and it's the past is really violent, the past that kind of connects everybody. And it's violent, and it's sparred on by a really small-minded person. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, because if you want to read it, it's a very intricate mystery, and so I don't want to take away the unraveling of that mystery. So it does have that. It has a deeper mystery than a cozy mystery would have, but I felt like it kind of didn't know what it was going to be, or that Matthew J. Sullivan didn't know what he wanted his book to be. I read some other review that said that it felt too safe, and I think that makes sense for somebody who's coming to this thinking it's a full-on like suspenseful mystery. But for me, I felt like it just it didn't balance itself, or it didn't know what it wanted to be. So I gave it 3 stars. Okay, so A Glimmer of Death by Valerie Wilson Wesley fell into the same pitfall as Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore. It wasn't hardcore mystery enough to do well in that area, and it wasn't cozy enough to be a cozy mystery. And what made this one even more frustrating, so this one I gave 2 stars. Well, I gave it 2.5 stars, so I gave it just a half star down from the first one. But what frustrated me about this one is because it had that supernatural premise that I really loved. I love supernatural, paranormal. That always kind of ups the ante for me. So this book went on just like any other book would go on, where there's a person kind of going in circles trying to figure out who killed who, with a couple of red herrings, and then in the end the mystery is finally solved. Her glimmer, or her psychic ability, did nothing. It basically made her just seem like she was just more emotionally intelligent. That's it. Like, she could tell from someone's aura, or what they call a glimmer, that they look more gray, so they were depressed. That somebody who's just intuitive, someone who is more outward focused, and someone who is emotionally intelligent could tell that more. People who are clueless wouldn't see that. Her psychic ability did absolutely nothing. It added absolutely nothing to the story. She couldn't trust someone even more. Like, you would think that she would be able to trust when someone who she was sort of close to, who she knew, who her coworkers or anything like that, she'd be able to kind of check people off the list. Maybe if the glimmer wasn't so strong, maybe it would at least have checked off some of the lower level people. But it didn't even give her that much of an advantage. It was just worthless, and it was just like, it was frustrating watching her kind of stumble around. When I read it, I heard bakery, and she did bake a lot, and I heard cat. Those are, cozy mystery kinds of things. But like I said, it was kind of seedy, the real estate agency she was working for, and there were multiple seedy people in the place, and even the people who weren't bad people were kind of on the outs, and that's why they had to stay in that job. And there was nothing cozy really about it. It was she was just very frustrating. And I won't continue with the series. And that makes me feel sad. Okay, so the last book I finished was The Word is Murder. I had to make sure it was murder. The Word is Murder, a Hawthorne and Horowitz mystery, #1 by Anthony Horowitz. Anthony Horowitz is becoming an auto read for me. He has written himself into these books. This book here that I'm talking about, and I've already started reading the second one in this series. This is a book where this kind of disgraced detective, who still has obviously a lot of connections at the police department because he's disgraced because he actually killed a pedophile that was going to get away. And so they still kind of trust him and things like that, and they let him have a lot of access. And so that's where Hawthorne, and I think his name is David Hawthorne, and then Horowitz is the author himself. And Hawthorne comes to him and says, hey, I want you to write a story about me and this case. I think and it is, Hawthorne Mysteries or something like that. The mystery in this first book is that there's a woman who goes into a funeral home and plans her own funeral down to the smallest detail, and then 6 hours later is killed. So that's the short pitch. But what ends up happening is it's this really intricate story with lots of really well done red herrings. By the end, there's 6 people who could have reasonably done this, and it's not just throwaway red herrings. So the lady accidentally runs over twins who are running in the street, and they have their nanny with them, and it doesn't make sense that the kids run away from the nanny to the ice cream shop because they're 8 and they could clearly see that the ice cream shop was closed. And so that's a big mystery. So there's all these little tiny mysteries that end up being solved. There's and that's one of the frustrating things about other mysteries, is that in the pursuit to have red herrings, there's all these little mysteries that sometimes get left on the floor. This one does not do that. All the mysteries are put together. All of the weird people that show up, or this little tidbit that came out that they ran down and found out it had nothing to do with the main murder or something like that. All of that is put together. So the lady who plans her own funeral and then is killed, her son is very famous, and he has been in a bunch of movies and shows in the UK and the US. Midsummer Murders, I watched that show, and it's like a cozy mystery series. And Anthony Horowitz is a screenplay writer on that, and he put the character in some of those episodes there, and he wrote a miniseries called Injustice that's in here. And I was like, somebody in the reviews was saying I need to go read this or watch this, and so I went back and started going through his filmography, and I was like, oh, these are real things. And so he injected himself into the story, and I just think that's so cool, and it was really fun. Their kind of love-hate relationship. The author is a little more erudite and sleek, and lives in a really nice area, and while David Hawthorne is intelligent, he went to school, he's intelligent, the author is always still, or the author, the main character, is always confused when Horowitz is like reading The Outsider by Albert Camus, and he is like, why, like, he lives in a penthouse, like how can he afford living in a penthouse? And it comes out why, but every time there's something that makes him not look like a down on his luck stereotypical detective, it throws Horowitz off. And it's funny because he does admit that the guy is smart and he's educated, so why wouldn't he? And the one thing that is unsettling about Hawthorne is that he's like really homophobic. And it's weird because it's another lampshade moment where Horowitz says that, you know, I would never work with someone like this. I would never, and he walks away the first time that Hawthorne has a outburst that way. But then he comes back and he says, well, I really want to know. I've already put my work into it. Somebody else is going to get all of my work and I'll be just a side character in my own story. So it was like, again, like, yes, you should have made the choice, and the moral choice that would cost you would be to walk away and not work with him and stand in whatever consequence comes from that morally. But he doesn't. He continues on working with him, and he continues on the second book. And the second book, that kind of thing comes out right away. And so, like, I'm like, okay, so is this just is this a person who's just not going to be consistent morally because humans aren't consistent morally? Or is he putting a lampshade on this thing again? So this book got a 4-star from me. Again, I think I'm just going to be going on a blitz of his just adult mysteries. So I won't be reading the children's books, but he has, like, he seems to have twos of every one of his series. So he has 2 of the Magpie series, 2 of this Anthony Horowitz series, or Hawthorne and Horowitz series. He has the estate of Arthur Conan Doyle announced Horowitz to be the writer of a new Sherlock Holmes novel, the first of such effort to receive an official endorsement from them. So he wrote The House of Silk, The Three Monarchs is like a novella, and then Moriarty. So I'm gonna read those next, and I'll probably burn through those this month. Like, I'm just really enjoying his style. That's what I read. This went a little longer than what I wanted. I always end up talking so long and cutting out so much. So to finish this up, I won't go through the whole what I'm currently reading and what I'll read next week. You'll just find that out next week. And so let's use the pumpkin as our, there's got to be a pumpkin. Let's use the pumpkin as our end of the video emoji if you don't have anything to say. Otherwise, let me know what you're reading this week. What did you think of what I read this week? And are you the same as me when it comes to being able to completely binge a whole 10 hours of a TV show but won't sit down for 2 hours of a movie? Or are you the exact opposite? Or do you understand the psychology behind that? Be easy on yourself, and I will see you in the next video. There's Missy's tail. She's playing with her ball.